Most founders go broke trying to be the builder. I say all the time within the AI industry, people enter the space and they think they need to build everything. They learn how to build all the systems and then they ended up just either going broke, burnt out, and just failed to start and get it off the ground. So there's a big problem with this, and it is common in the industry. You start an agency and you think you need to master every tool. You look at it, we have Make, we have HubSpot, we have and there's APIs we got to learn, we got to integrations, we got to do HTTP requests and calls, and it's a whole lot of stuff, right? A lot of people, they start business and they just want to get going. Like they have a passion for it. It's like learning a skill and then not having entry into the club, I guess you could say, as an old person, but not having entry into these, this arena that is the AI space. And what they do is they sort of sign people and then they start learning Make or N8N and all these things. And they feel like there's progress, I can get in quicker, and I'm sort of mastering this tool, and then I can actually service clients and do everything from there and just start scaling. But it's actually a trap. It's I'll tell you why in a second, but it's a very, very misconception, and I strongly, strongly believe that you either are really, really system focused and you are, you come from like a computer science background and you really just click with coding, or you come from a business background or a like a consumerism background where your specialty is talking to people, selling, and just sort of like an actual founder style, personal style that you have. So the reality is building is the lowest leverage task for a founder. If you're going not on the systems route, but as a founder, you have a business background. Maybe you came from customer service, retail, trade services. If you're a bricklayer or even, you come from a retail shop and you sold clothing, is building actually the highest leverage activity you can do in a business. So you have zero coding knowledge, you have, everything, like there's just nothing system wise about you. So is it really the highest leverage task for you to then go learn everything from scratch and learn all the platform, like the coding aspects of these no code platforms? Is that still the highest leverage, or is it leaning on your customer service experience and doing sales and client work, right? Client management. And this is sort of the crux of what I'm trying to get across with this, because I know there's going to be so many people that are like, no, you're wrong, Corey. That's a load of shit. And I get there's systems and I get there's regular people. I'm talking to the regular people. Systems people, the highest leverage task probably is building. But for the retail, the common person who hasn't got that knowledge, it's not. So clients don't pay for button clicks. They pay for clarity, systems, and results. And where you sit in that process doesn't really matter, right? I've learned it with my own agency. We've scaled it to 50,000 in the last few months, and they just want constant communication updates, a good onboarding and start, and a good offboarding, and finishing off the project and handing it off. Everything else in between is completely fine. So when we're looking at just sort of the lowest leverage task, right, we have this Kralogic matrix, and this is used for more logistics and supply chains, but this can actually apply to the automation space, right? So it's split into low risk down here. So low risk is over here, and then sorry, we have the wrong one. Low risk down here, and then the high risk is up. So when we're looking at this matrix, like where we're going, sort of the low impact, the high risk is the bottlenecks. So if I am we're going to pick on retail workers today. It's your turn in the rounding. If I am a retail worker and I don't know how to build, and I take on client work and I need to learn and master all these skills, that is a high risk, right? There's a very high risk. It is a low impact to then build because, if we only care about the beginning, the end, and communication, and all of this is, the building time, then these are technically the lower impact at the moment in terms of the client's eyes. I know we have to build the system. Just bear with me for a second, right? So these are sort of the lower impact in this section. Now let's go yellow. Actually, let's put a blue so we know which mark it is. In terms of a non-critical, this would be a low impact, low risk. So, maybe you just step in here and maybe you just step in here. Very low risk. You're not going to win any awards. You're sort of a low impact. You're not doing much to the business. Let's go this color now. Now, strategically, you should be doing this high risk and high impact. So what has the highest impact is these points, right? This is what we said. For a client delivery, our highest points are these two. Let's just do an arrow up here. These are the highest impact points. They're also the highest risk because we're saying, hey, I'm going to build it, my company, my everything, right? We're making these promises and this, we're doing statements of work and we're doing all of this sort of stuff. This is the high risk stuff. And it's not a risk in terms of, hey, you're going to crash and burn, but it is a risk in terms of if you don't deliver, you're risking your reputation, you're risking, the funds, your project value, the deposits paid, all this sort of stuff, right? So you're still the front facing, like you shoulder the burden. Yeah. But in saying that, it has the highest impact. So the highest impact would be referrals, right? This person tells their friend over here and they tell their friend, and this is the highest impact. In doing this, we shouldn't do that color, we should do this one. In doing this, you're building and you're delivering the value. Sure, you're making it, but from your point of view, where does the actual sales, the referrals, the revenue generated from this actual building aspect, where does it come in? Right? This is what I mean by low impact. If we're just doing, 99 hours of this and maybe, we're not doing this high risk stuff with clients, then we're really not going to grow that much. And then obviously a high impact, low risk is sort of like in the first and end parts of the building. But where we want to sit is this one right here. High risk, high impact, high rewards. So the cost, every hour you spend building is not spent on revenue, right? And that's a lot of people, they're sort of like, yeah, but I have to deliver the product. It's like, yes, correct. You do have to deliver the product, but do you have to deliver the product? Or does your company, does your organization have to deliver the product? And a lot of people get it confused and they just say, oh, I can deliver this product, right? An example of what this is going to look like is I do automations, right? In my agency, we do a lot of custom work. We have a project where we sort of have, we have builders and we have the automation stuff, but then we need certain CRMs that we need to flow stuff into. Now, we then put the builders to work out how to put the information in the CRM? Like we need to add tagging systems, we need to add certain fields and values in there. And it's not a simple, drag and move the stuff across, but would it not make more sense to hire, a freelancer for an hour, just sort out that part of it, whilst the builders can then spend their most high impact, high risk or low risk, high impact stuff, like doing their stuff, right? And that same concept applies here. Your specialty is in sales, right? Sales, client relationship, consulting, and system design. So in the same concept as why would I put my builder who specializes in N8N and make.com over into a CRM system and take him away from that? And he takes longer to do that, right? Why are you going from here to do the building when you specialize, like you are a salesperson, a relationship, you're a retailer, right? You sell clothes. You know how to be friendly, how to, sort of warm up to these people, how to sort of match their levels. And, consulting, you know, hey, your eyes match this color. I don't know how retail works. I don't shop enough, but you know how all that stuff works. So to go from that to, hey, I'm just going to build this stuff. I'm going to spend 90% of my time building this stuff over here. It's really illogical, right? And when we look at it in terms of like a graph, when we're not building, we have sort of revenue going up here, right? So the revenue and time is sort of going up because we're not bottlenecked by our own time being allocated to building. I had a brain fart then. So, if we're building, the graph is sort of looking like this because we're only limited to the amount of time that we can build. And then how much revenue are we getting because we're not actually allocating any time to do revenue generating activities. So this is why I keep harping on and I go on, systems people, this sort of doesn't really apply to actual, I would say about 80-90% of people entering the AI space aren't heavily system, right? They don't have that background. So they're either coming in real fresh or they're coming in as this sort of the front end salesperson. So in my eyes, the salespeople, the 80%, the real job is the architect. They're not the builder. You need to spot problems worth solving. You need to design the systems that fixes the problems, and then you need to hire a builder to execute them. Hiring all three of those are incredibly valuable, right? We need to spot the business problems. You can't go to a consultancy and just say, let's just put this automation in place. It doesn't work like that, right? We need to actually understand where the problem is. Where's the bottlenecks? Is it in like sales? Is it in leads? Is it not even in those and it's in payroll? Is it in all these other systems for the company? And we need to work out where it is, right? So we need some sort of background in this. We then design the systems to fix them. Okay, so we need payroll. So let's do an automation with Xero. Let's do an automation with Excel. We need to get it from the rostering system. We design the system around that. And usually what this works out to be is like a flow chart. And you can actually use GPT to help, design the structure of this, right? So we might go like platform 1 to platform 2 to platform 3. And you sort of just work out what the end goal is. So the first one is, okay, we got a payroll system. We want to extract roster data. Okay, so they have platform 1, so we have a roster data. And then, we're not going real in depth. We're not hard going like rostering data. We need to do an API call. We need to do a get and get all these. It's just, okay, we need a rostering. We get it from the rostering. This is then going to go into a Google Sheet or a Microsoft Excel. Okay, so that's platform 2. From there, we need to do some sort of formulas, calculate everything. So we keep it in there. Next one, we're going to need to move it into Xero or QuickBooks or whatever accounting software. Okay, so that's platform 3. There's 3 platforms we need. From there, we want to send an email to the bookkeeper, to the client, just say that, hey, the invoices are ready for you to sign off. Okay, that's platform 4. And you can see we're not going hard into depth, but we're designing the architect, the flow system that is going like this, right? And then from there, we give to the builders, and we can use GPT to make builder notes to execute on what we need to do. But you notice the difference between these architect roles where we're planning and how they're a lot more impactful than someone then receiving it and saying, okay, we're just going to build this, right? From the client's perspective, the builder is, here's your instructions, build it. From an actual perspective of a architect or a consultant or whatever word you want to call it, I know how to build X. It sounds pretty cool. Yeah. All right. But then if you say, oh, I can roadmap a whole system. I can roadmap, and my specialty is the strategic side. I can, identify the whole programs we need. I can, look into the future, see 3 months down the line it's going to cause this bottleneck. We're going to have to start implementing and thinking about doing something over that. That stuff is a hell of a lot more important in the client's eyes, and you will get a lot more credit. And that's that high risk thing, because you don't want to screw it up, essentially. But if you can pull that off, like referrals come in, higher value contracts, repeat business, a lot of stuff comes in just from understanding this business problems and how to solve them and how to design these. So the patterns I often see, and I made the same mistake, so don't think I'm just attacking anyone here, but the pattern I see is the founders who stay stuck at the 2 to 5K are always the ones building everything themselves, right? There's some edge cases where, people, we templatize, I don't know if that's a word, our systems, and, we can make it quicker, and we're not building everything ourselves. But client acquisition and acquiring leads takes a huge dip. So what happens is they start with like 10 hours a week and they're okay. So we have like, let's just go see a client acquisition. And then we have like a building. Let's just do building like this. They start at like this ratio, right? Let's say we have a total and we only can work 40 hours per week, right? This is our total. So then then they get a new client. Oh, okay. I can only do 6 hours of this because I need to do 34 hours here, right? And then they get a next client. The third client comes in. I can only do 2 here. I really need that other 4 hours to do the building. Okay, so we do that. All of a sudden, they're maxed out, right? And then the problem we have is this might actually only equal 3 clients. Which, if we get about 1, maybe 1.5 each, we're looking at 2 to 5K. And this is the pattern. This is the trade-off for being the builder. I mean, sure, you can speed it up, but there's always going to be a limit on the amount of time you can build and the amount of time you can acquire people. The edge cases can build very quickly, and they still dedicate a lot of time. Like the client acquisition is fixed. I only, I do 8 hours, well, maybe not 8 hours. I do 1 or 2 hours a day, no matter what, and I still have time to do the building. They're usually the edge cases that, you should do it that way. And if you do it that way, congrats to you. That's amazing. But majority of the cases, this whole thing here is how I've seen so many people. And they're spending, like 10 hours a day in make instead of 1 hour of selling. If we're looking at sort of the impact of this, I did the same thing. Like, I've done this. I've gone through it in many of my videos. How I tried building. I realized that my 30 hours of building, actually a professional or a systems person who's good with this stuff can actually build within 10 hours. So then why am I wasting 20 hours, right? And that was sort of the thing, right? So I took 30. Let's say I took 30 over here, and a builder done it in 10. So I had 20 hours of difference, and the builder was costing me, I think it was $150. But my brain was then like, okay, I'm really good at sales. I'm really good at, delivering value. I'm really good at communication and stuff. What would happen if I put this 20 hours purely to sale? Can I cover this cost essentially, right? Because this is my only cost for building. And this is that moment that I had when I was like, wait, logically, why does this make sense? Sure, if I didn't take 30 hours and maybe I took 12 hours, it's not a huge difference. It's not worth 2 hours extra. I'm probably not going to get I'll still get some stuff done, but I won't get a huge amount of impact like I'm having with this job. And you can you could learn the systems and stuff, but that's still like a month of wasted time that we could start building and scaling. So, so I hired a builder. I freed up a hell of a lot of time for the day, and I spent this time here per week or per project on actually acquiring and doing client acquisition, right? This led to a huge breakthrough. I think when I started implementing this, I signed the first retainer, which this was a $1,500 retainer. Not big, but it was good. I learned a lot from it. But the trade-off was I gave up $150. I gave up probably, let's just say, $100 of credit of Upwork, credits. And in return, I got $1,500. So really my net profit was $1,350, right? This was, that pivot point where I was like, why am I building? Like, I'm obviously not system designed, right? If I can produce this, which I produced a little bit more than this, but if I can produce this and close clients and I can allocate 20 hours to my specialty, why am I building? That was the biggest pivot point when I started doing this like sort of cost analysis, because I didn't want to fall into this trap here. So the takeaway of being all this is, if you're specialized in business customer acquisition and not an IT background, you got to stop being the builder, right? You need to be the founder. You need to be the strategic. Your high impact, high risk is on the client stuff, is on the staffing management. It's on delivering an absolute excellent service. And you can see just from my examples of, my past and how I've sort of laid out here that it's hard to argue that that's more impactful. And I know there's going to be people that learn more, study harder, templatize, if that's a word, templatize the all the stuff, and it will sort it out. But to what degree is my question to them? At what point do you stop doing that? You're going to need to hire someone, right? You're going to have to start taking a step back eventually to scale. So if there's no strong suit, do a cost analysis like this, like I did here. Do a test build, try it yourself, see how long it takes you to do one build, and then see how long a professional takes to do it. And then run the analysis. How much did this cost you? This cost you 20 hours and wasted, I don't want to say wasted, but wasted time. Okay, so if we get 20 hours and wasted time, and I spend 10 hours on client acquisition and I get one client, then logically, that 20 hours, I pay someone $150 for the 10-hour difference, and I can acquire 2 clients, right? It's just, that's the main takeaway for this whole thing. If you're a systems person, then, the reverse will probably happen, and it's probably a lot better for you to be system built, and you have a lot bigger impact than you just hire for sales, essentially. So if you're serious about scaling and focus on sales and systems, let someone else do the building. That's how agencies stop bleeding time. That's how I did it. I've learned, after countless months now, the systems that actually work for me. We have 6 staff members at the moment, all churning as a machine. I do a lot of the strategic growth, so it's working really, really good. So that's everything in there. All my links are below. I'm not going to do any sales calls or any CTAs. Yuck. That's all below. I have a school community in there. If you want to talk to the team, then my link's in there for the calendar. Otherwise, add me on socials. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments or on the socials. And have a great day.